Okay, so the recording has started, and for all of you who are told that they didn't attend, you have to message us after the lecture.
I'll start. So first of all, let's I know everyone knows about TCP, IP, and HTTP by now. We will just have a very quick 2-minute revision on all those concepts. So first of all, suppose I hope everyone by now knows what is an IP address. It is something that is assigned to your laptops or machines. So if I send some data from one PC to another, so what happens is that data is basically like Shobhankar had explained this, but I'll just give a quick revision. That data will basically be in a part of it will be basically sort of this way. That data will be like this. So whatever is the data that you want to send, it will be here, and IP head. They will. This is basically a IP packet, and IP header meaning suppose there is a source machine and destination machine. So this header will have the source IP, like from where the data needs to be sent to where the data has to be sent, source, destination, and size of, and many more things. This is a deep concept. I'll just give a very brief overview on this. So this is an IP packet. So this IP will be nothing but the source of the computer and the destination of the destination IP address and the data. So the data, obviously, because of the limitations of the size of this header, the data cannot of this packet. The data, all my data cannot go into this one packet. I need multiple such IP packets. So now, in order to make sure that the order of these packets remains same, and if the packet is not lost in between, so all of that is handled by a something called as TCP, like the TCP header as well. So we also need something called as TCP, this protocol. So they both go along. So what does TCP will do is it will mention what is the packet number. Suppose this is first packet, this is second packet, and so on. So TCP is basically built on top of IP, and it will guarantee that the order of IP packets are going on in a reliable way. That if anything is lost, I'll know that yeah, this is lost. So the complete data can be considered as this way. I also have IP header, then I'll have a TCP header which will have the sequence as well as the many more things. So this is like a very quick and brief revision on IP and TCP packets. Also, I wanted to mention that for as Ali had explained that day, if client and browser needs to communicate with each other, there needs to be some network in between, so that we can call it as a TCP handshake. So basically, if a browser wants to I'll just add it. So if this is suppose one browser and this is suppose another machine, if they want to communicate with each other, they start with a TC, something called as a TCP handshake. So this will go like this. This browser will tell this machine that, hey, I want to communicate with you. Are you available? Then again a new connection. So this is, yeah, I am available. Let's start. So this is okay. I'm sending you a packet. Please see if you have got the packet or not. So this is like they have established a TCP handshake. So this was all about IP and TCP. If you are asking me like what is HTTP, HTTP is something that is that made the life of developers very easy. So this HTTP header not only contains the details of the machines, it not only contains the details of source IP, destination IP, all this is okay. But what if I also want to send the data along with this? What if sometimes I want to know which route do I need to go, which service do I need to go, which user has already logged in. So you can call it as a session. So all of this has become easy with the help of this HTTP protocol. So nowadays, all the web browsers use this HTTP protocol in order to communicate with each other. This was a very quick revision on the OSI model that we had done. I needed these things today, so I thought of quickly revising them. So we are done with the quick revision on this. Now, what we will do is, okay. So now what we will do is I will be, do you all remember that that day we had understood about the load balancers, but many people were not able to imagine like what is exactly happening. So what I have done is before going to the Google Cloud platform, I have set up a we have decided that we will set up a load balancer into into our local machine and show you all a very quick demo of how it all takes place. So should we move ahead? I'll show the demo. Okay, I'll present my entire screen. Okay, this is also before going there, let me tell you all, if you have already attended the sessions by now, you must be knowing these things. So I'll try to revise them, but I hope like everyone is aware of these things. Like Ali gave an Express server demo that day. He also explained about regions and zones yesterday. Then we had a very quick this. Ali also explained and I also explained about the load balancers. Then Palak and Shubhankar explained about virtualization and containerization. Then we had something called as scaling, which you all like learned new. So like all those system design concepts and need for scaling on application, horizontal vertical scaling, then a bit about network layers. So these are some things that we have already covered in the previous sessions. Today's session will be built on like all of them, but I'll try to revise if there is a need. So we'll move ahead. First concept is about virtual machine. You all can see that even I have a Windows laptop, but on even I have a Windows laptop, but on top of that, I have something called as this OM VirtualBox Manager. What it will do is it will help me create a virtual machine. So you all can see I have a Windows laptop, but on top of that, I have Ubuntu running. So I'll start my Ubuntu. Okay. So I'll just show you a quick demo. What is exactly happening is, I have now I need the Express server code that Ali explained that day. So I have taken, you all can see that I have taken that only. It's just that I won't go through the code as we had gone that day. So I'm just telling you all, I have a simple Express server which is running on the port that is provided by me through the terminal, and it will just print out that hello from port. That's it. That this is the server, that this is what the server is doing. So let us do one thing. Ignore everything that is above this. What I'll do is I am telling this machine that run this server from the port number 3000. If I do this, okay, I think the server is already running. Okay, give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, since it was for like let's say 3002, because 3000 was already running. So I'll say I hope everyone understood what we are doing. This is an Express server, and you can consider I am opening 3 terminals right now. This is the terminal number 1, this is terminal number 2, and this is terminal number 3. Ignore everything that is written above, that was just for testing. These are the 3 terminals, and okay, so you all can consider these 3 terminals as 3 different machines. Okay, this is telling that run this Express server from port number 3002. This is telling run the Express server from port number 3001, and this is telling run the same server from port number 3000. So let's run this. So this is listening. Okay, this is listening. Okay, this is listening. Okay, so let's see if everything's working fine. I'll go localhost. First one was at port number 3000, right? And the endpoint was /hello, if you'll see in the code. So it says hello from port 3000, cool. Next I'll go to 3001 /hello. This also says works, great. And then I'll go to 3000 and okay, sorry, it should be /hello. Okay, so you all can see that I have now what you all want to like how you all should imagine this is you all should consider that this is one different application server, this is some another application server, this is some another application server, and all of them are running at different ports. Okay, so if I draw it here, also you all can ask doubts. Palak, Ali, Shubhankar, or even I, we will be monitoring the chat and we will be helping you all then. So till now, what we have done, I'm just trying to make a quick this. So what we have done till now, we have made three servers. This is server 1, this is server 2, this is server 3. This is running on port number 3000. This is running on port number 3001, and this on 3002. Okay. Now my target is all of them have the same application, right? So if there is one client here, if there is one client, he should not be deciding that I want to go to here or here or here. What he should be doing is there should be one load balancer in between. The client and the load balancer should run on, let's say, port. Okay, sorry. The load balancer should run on, let's say, port number 8081. So what this client should do is he should just make a request to this, and this load balancer should decide on which way do I have to go. Do I have to transfer the request here or here or here? Okay, everyone got what we are trying to achieve? For now, we have set up these three servers in the local machine. And now what I'm trying to do is I'm setting a load balancer on port 8081, and it will serve the request. I'll show, and then it might be more clear. So let's see. Don't try to understand what the code is doing. That is not the the best is like what we want. I just want you all to understand how the load balancer is working. Okay, I'll show. If you want, we will explain this later. So I have Nginx server running at load port number 8081. We will see what's happening at 8081. Okay, sorry, it should be /hello again. So now everyone please concentrate. If I'm going on 8081, it told me that hello from port 3001. If I refresh it, it says 3002, 3000. You all can see that this is what we had understood or learned that day, that it's going in a round robin fashion. First it's trying what is this load balancer is doing. First I got a request, it will try that request should go here. The second request will go here. The third request will go here, and so on. So is this clear, like how it's going in a round robin manner? So this was about round robin. Let's say you like we had also explained weighted round robin that day. So what I'll do is I don't have like this is the configuration file for the load balancer. I'll say that this server has more resources. So give most of the request like pass on most of the request to this server. Like the ratio should be 3:1:1. So let's see if the load balancer is able to do that. So now what should be the answer is most of the requests should be going to port number the weight that we have added. So most of the requests should be going on this port number. What was that? I think it was 3000, right? Yeah, most of the requests should be going to 3000 port now. Like most of meaning, let's see. So you all can see abhi it's not round robin, it's sort of weighted round robin, and it's focusing more on 3000. So this is about the weighted round robin. And one last algorithm I needed to show, many people had doubts. So it's something called as IP underscore hash. If you all remember, this is a IP hash algorithm that we had discussed that day. So what it will do is it will hash the client IP, and it will always redirect the client to that server. So as you all can see, now I cannot do anything. Okay, I have to restart the server. One second. Okay, so now you all can see, since my IP always remains same, it's not changing. It always redirects me to this server only, port 3002 only. So this was a very small demo of how load balancer sends the request. So can you like please tell me if this was clear to everyone or any doubts so that we can move ahead? Yes, clear. Okay, clear. Clear meaning the concepts. Okay, clear.
So, Nikita just covered the basics of load balancers. There are few topics that are still left to be recorded in this session that we had in the meeting, but it wasn't recorded because we had some technical issues. So, I will be starting with another topic that we did in the meet. The load balancers basic is completely covered in the previous minutes that you saw. Uh, there are certain concepts still left. That PPT, that entire PPT that Nikita had presented during the meet in the session of day 3 will be shared to you in the description, so you can check that out. And after doing that, we are able to do the lab setup network and HTTP load balancers, and that is in skill badge 1 lab 4. So this was our day 3 first agenda, setup network, the basics of which was covered previously as you saw. Now I will be starting with a new concept of what is cloud and the types of models that we have. So I have repeated this previously as well, that whenever we want to relate why are we actually in this program, what are we doing, and how is it related to what we are or will be doing ahead. So it is related to something called as deployment. So whenever you do a project, there are stages that you go through. There is design, there is development, there is deployment, and then there is testing. So cloud as a service comes into picture at the deployment stage. And there are many service providers which help us use their services and deploy our projects. So you have Amazon, you have Google, and you have Microsoft. These are the services, service providers, as we can say. So our labs that we are doing are based on the GCP, Google Cloud Platform practice. However, the concepts that we cover are universal for cloud computing as a topic. So now we are going to see 3 major topics. What is cloud? The types of models, that is public, private, hybrid, and the types of services. These services are really very important, and the denotions that you see here, IaaS, SaaS, PaaS, this is something which you will find being used many a time. So we will elaborate it in the coming minutes. So cloud, easy, very easy if you relate to it. I have made a project and now I want that my project should be deployed somewhere so that many users can use it from all over the world. Usually what we do, we deploy our apps to our websites to Heroku. Heroku is also a service provider, we may say. But what if I want to buy my own service provider? Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. So, but then I will have to take care of certain other issues as well when I buy my server. I have to look at the security issues. I have to maintain my server properly. And this comes at a big cost. Instead of that, if we can use the servers on the internet, that would be more beneficial to us instead of buying our own servers. So we don't have to worry about the security, risk management, and that is being handled by the cloud service providers, as I told, Amazon, Google, Azure, or many other platforms. So cloud is basically using the remote servers on the internet. It's just like I am not buying my own house. I am renting a house and living, and I can live there. So cloud is basically serving the same purpose. You can deploy your applications instead of buying. You are renting. You are using the remote servers on the internet and paying for whatever functionalities you have used. That is cloud. So now coming to the models, as I told before, we have 3: public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and the service models. So first we will be looking into public, private, and hybrid cloud. Public cloud is basically, as the name says, it is available globally. Remember this keyword, global. Public is basically global, that which is available to everyone. So Gmail, you don't pay anything to use Gmail, right? You can use it. Everyone can use it. Private, on the other hand, is dedicated to specific organizations which pay to use that service. So it has good security because obviously you are paying and you are buying something. So that cloud has more advantages. And the example you can see here is bank cloud. So yes, bank clouds can't be kept public and to be used by everyone, right? We need security there. Hybrid, on the other hand, is a mixture of public and private cloud. So it takes the advantages of both public and private cloud and gets the name hybrid. So if I have to tell you the advantages of public cloud, one would be very easy. You can also guess that it is freely available to everyone. You don't have to pay, and even if you have to pay, it will be very less in amount. Whereas in case of private, the disadvantage is that you are giving money, but at the same time you can make your own customizations that you want in your private cloud. You can choose which resources to be used, which operating system to be used. You have the full control to do that, but not in the case of public cloud. I can't, just because I want something to be changed, I cannot change it globally, right? I will have to buy it in order to make my own customizations. So hybrid cloud takes the advantages of both and help us combine and get a functionality called as hybrid cloud. So example of hybrid cloud would be that system admins are able to separate the functionalities and manage where exactly to use public features and where exactly to use private features. So you can remember this as the mixture of both, taking the advantages of both. Moving on. Now, the denotions that I told, IaaS, SaaS, PaaS. So I in IaaS stands for infrastructure. Similarly, platform and software. And AAS is basically as a service. This is a very common denotion that you will see. So we will be studying each one in detail. So now, what is infrastructure as a service in cloud? So basically, it's like the example that I gave before. It is that you rent a house. Your house is basically the infrastructure. Now, once you rent the house, you have the full choice to place wherever you want the cupboard to be, wherever you want any thing in your house to be. It's up to you. So similarly, in case of cloud, you have the option to choose the operating system you want. However, the IP address is already given to you. What do I mean by this is that when you select a house, wherever you want to rent and live, you select the house. But is that address decided by you? No. That house has a given address that comes with the house. Similar is the case with infrastructure as a service. IP address is something that infrastructure as a service already has. Now, virtual machine. You have the option to choose the virtual machines you want. And what is this like electricity? So basically, whenever you rent a house, you don't pay for the electricity bills that you get. You just pay the rent. The rest is taken care by the service maintainer. Similar is the case with infrastructure as a service. So when we use cloud, we have the option of choosing our own operating system, our own virtual machine, and we have to give a particular rent. That is only our job, and we can use the services. The other things, the maintenance, the service, all depends on the host, on the provider. So this is basically infrastructure as a service, where we have the option, where we have the access to take advantage of many resources. Platform as a service, on the other hand, has limited access than infrastructure as a service. What does platform as a service mean? That you don't have the option of choosing everything, but you can use their tool to develop your software. So basically, developers use this service. Best example is WordPress or Photoshop for that matter. So what does WordPress or Photoshop do? You have all the tools available with you. Now you can just drag and drop and get the desired result. That is basically platform as a service. So WordPress ho gaya. Now in IaaS, if you remember, you had the option of choosing which operating system you want. You want Windows, you want Linux. But here I don't have the option. Whichever is given to me, I have to use that. It's like in runtime environment, you are using, the developers use it. Similar is the case with WordPress, right? We have to have some knowledge to use WordPress and design how our website would look like. So that is platform as a service. Lastly, software as a service. This is very simple and basic to understand. It is used by the end users. So all the websites, all the apps that everyone uses, that is software as a service. We are just using the services hosted, deployed, made by someone else. So that is platform independent, right? You can use it in your phone, laptop, PCs, anywhere, and give the payment of however you want to use. So like if I'm using a website and if that has certain payments to be given to use it, I can give that. No need to install, just like I told, website no need to install, and no need to deal with the security issues. Yes, we don't need to see what is happening in the back end. We just have what we want. Like we want to search this product, okay, I got the search results. Now I don't know what is happening in the back end, and I don't need to know in software as a service. So a basic example that I want to give you of IaaS, PaaS and SaaS would be that you go to a restaurant, okay, and then you, after going there, you tell the chef that, okay, please can you go aside and I will make my dishes. I just want your restaurant vegetables, utensils, everything, and I will make my own dish. That is infrastructure as a service. Whereas on the other hand, if you go to a restaurant, sit on the table and chair, order your food, eat and go, that is using the platform of the hotel and taking the meal. Software as a service, meaning that you order food online. So these three stages, if you properly relate to: infrastructure, meaning that you tell the chef to go aside and you yourself cook, but using their infrastructure, using their hotel. Platform as a service, means you go to the hotel, you sit on the table and chair, you eat and come back. That is platform. And software as a service, means you don't even go, you just get the result. You just order and you get the result. You don't care from which hotel it is coming, who is bringing my delivery, how is he bringing my delivery. I just want it to be delivered at my doorstep. That is software as a service. So now if you see access limit in this three models that I gave, infrastructure is the most flexible, I would say. You have the options to choose your resources, your management, your security. In case of platform and software, the access is limited, right? So in software, I don't decide who will bring my delivery, how will he bring my delivery. And in platform as a service, I have limited access, right? I can decide which hotel I want to go to eat my dinner today. And in infrastructure, whichever hotel I want to go to, I'll tell the chef to go aside and I will make the dish. So I hope you got the access limit as well. So this was the second session of day 3, understanding what is cloud, the types of cloud models, that is public, private and hybrid. Next is the 3 services that I showed you here: IaaS, PaaS and software as a service. So the next topic that we will be studying is identity access management. This is the third agenda that we planned for day 3. So identity access management is basically, it tells us who has access to that project. And as you can see, every product that we use in GCP, every application that we deploy via GCP comes under a project, and every project has its own ID, unique, which is unique. So for that, I would like to go to this slide and explain about what attributes does a project have. So it has ID, name and number. Now you can see the ID is unique, chosen by you, and it is immutable. That is, it cannot be changed. Name, on the other hand, need not be unique and it is chosen by you, which can be changed. And number is also globally unique, assigned by the Google Cloud Service providers. That is also immutable. So what I want to say is that every application that you develop or that you deploy via Google Cloud Platform comes under a project, and every project has its own globally unique project ID. What IAM does, it lets us identify who actually has the access. And every project can be run by one or more persons or accounts. There are different roles for every account. This is also called as policies. Every account, every project has certain policies, and only the project owner and the admin can change these rules. So very quickly, this is something which I had seen in the documentation which I'm attaching here. With IAM, you manage access control by defining who has what access for which resource. So for example, the compute engine virtual machine instances, the Google Kubernetes engine, all these are the services that GCP provides. All of these come under resources. And who has access to these resources? IAM helps us identify that, right? So the organizations, folders, and projects that you use to organize your resources are also called resources. I would like to give a brief about this here. So particularly in Google Cloud Platform, there is a hierarchy that we follow. This is called as the resource hierarchy, that every time I am deploying my project, I have my organization decided first. In that organization, I have the folders. In the folders, I have the projects, and the projects, each project contain its own resources. So my project, one project can have operating system as Linux, another project can have operating system as Windows, right? So this is the hierarchy that we are following. I have mentioned the hierarchy here. So first comes organization, in that you have folders, in that you have projects, and in that you have resources. What I want to prove here is that the last line that you saw, the organizations, the folders, and the projects that you use to organize your resources are also resources. And IAM lets us identify who has the access for all those resources. So in very short, IAM, Identity Access Management, controls by defining who has what access for which resource. That is the conclusion here. So as I told, now if you want to see the hierarchy further, you can see that each folder can contain another folders. That folder can contain projects. So this hierarchy is being followed. Organization, then folders, then projects, then resources. This is the Google Cloud Platform resources specifically for GCP. So yes, now I hope you understood what IAM means. It has a lab associated with it. You can find that lab here. So in day 3 session, we intended to cover this lab. So Nikita in the first 15 minutes described about load balancers. That lab you can find in skill badge 1. Then we covered what is cloud, the types of models. That does not have any lab particularly associated with it, but it will be useful as a concept. And the last concept that we saw, the IAM users roles, that comes under this skill badge 2 lab 2, Cloud IAM Quick Start. So you can refer to these. I will be attaching this doc link as well in the description. So this was about day 3. If you want to know more about load balancers, since only a particular part was being able to record, you can always ask us your doubts on Slack. So